Hello and welcome to this Friday night Niall Fraser show. I hope you're all well. We've reached the weekend. Thank God for that. Coming up on the Niall Fraser show tonight, the SNP Gender Woes Deepen. We'll be doing a deep dive into that. We've got the papers, we've got some videos, got some gifts, we've got some news from around the world on that, and then we've got the Labour conference review. You know, they're copying people. They're copying policies. They're copying the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. And of course, they're copying me as well. And lastly, probably the most important segment, we've got the replacement segment. We're talking about white replacement. Is it happening? Well, we'll see. We'll seek to find that out later on in the show. But first and foremost, let's get the intro music on. Let's get this Friday night rocking. Welcome to the Friday night Niall Fraser show, ladies and gentlemen. Over 100 people watching before the music ends. That's what we like to see. Only 4 people watching on YouTube, though. That is pathetic numbers. Pathetic. If you can do me a favour, share the broadcast, because I think it's not going to be too long tonight, but we've got quite some quite important topics coming up. We've got the gender woes deepen. The SNP gender woes deepen. Will this topple Swinney? Who knows? I mean, it toppled Sturgeon, didn't it? The Isla Bryson thing definitely put her on a wobble. But we have this headline in Daily Express today. Tories attack SNP's out-of-touch gender nonsense obsession. Well, isn't that the easiest attack vector possible for the Tories at this point in time? And like we correctly predicted, the only people en masse, of course, we've got the exception of Ash Reagan, but she is on her lonesome. The only people en masse who can attack the SNP, basically the whole government's stance on the gender nonsense, is in fact the Tories, even though they've got the three outliers, you know, the Jamie Green, Sandy Scalame, and what's his name, Jackson Carlaw. So we're going to read the paper. We've got some videos to show. We've got Neil Gray, quite a humanist video about Neil Gray coming from the Curious. We've got the EHRC, Maya Fostatter. They've released a sort of letter. And then we'll finish up with how it should be done. But first, let's tackle the papers. Tories attack SNP out of touch gender nonsense obsession by Richard Elias. The Scottish Government has been told that its obsession with gender nonsense shows an out of touch it is from the real world. Russell Finlay made his withering assessment during a fiery clash with the First Minister over the subject. It came as a Scots nurse had taken a health board to an industrial tribunal following a row with a trans doctor. We're all familiar with this story. Sandy Peggy claimed she was unlawfully harassed by Dr. Beth Upton, biological male who used the female changing facilities. Oh, isn't that a common thing? All the men that are trying to invade women's changing rooms. Oh, it's quite a big article. Oh, geez, look at this. Look at that. It's quite a big one. And we've got the Hunchback of Notre Dame herself, Susan Aitken, in the top corner there. You know, ringing the bells at Notre Dame. Of course, she's announced big council tax hikes because you're getting a lot for your money over in Glasgow. The Fife Hospital, where they both worked, speaking about the case during First Minister's questions in Holyrood yesterday. Mr. Finlay, the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, launched a brutal assault and attack on the SNP's gender ideology, referring to Miss Peggy, ongoing case. He said that the dedicated nurse now faces being sacked by bosses at NHS Fife for raising concerns about a man using women's changing rooms. He told MSPs women's spaces must be for women and girls. It's not controversial to say that. It's common sense. It is common sense, Russell. Well done. Mr. Finlay added, every woman in Scotland should be able to raise concerns about men using women's spaces without losing their jobs. This mess is happening because of the SNP's gender self-identification policy and their obsession with fringe issues. It's because they can't actually get anything done. They have to play the student politics, ladies and gentlemen. He continued, the SNP has put gender ideology before the rights of women and girls, but also before NHS waiting lists, before justice for victims, before our children's education. We'll be coming on that. We'll be coming on to the education stance later on. Scotland's public services waste too much time, energy and money on gender nonsense. John Swinney says he doesn't have regrets about backing the gender reforms, but he really should be ashamed about the damage those reckless and dangerous policies have done to our public services and the rights to women and girls. Surely at this point, ladies and gentlemen, surely at this point, John Swinney should be just backing off this subject. Surely they must back off from this subject. This is what John Swinney must be doing here. He must back off. If it doesn't, it's surely going to be the end of him. Surely. He must come to his senses. Surely, have they got any advisors in the SNP at all? Or are they all ideologically captured? Are they all, in fact, mentally ill? The collective support of the SNP, Labour and the Lib Dems for this confirms how utterly disconnected the Scottish Parliament has become from the real world. He went on, this madness isn't just happening within this NHS, it's in schools, at prisons, it's in rape crisis centres. You know, when I heard him make this speech in Horrid, I just knew that Russell Finlay must have been tuning in to the Niall Fraser show, because this is exactly what I said the day before First Minister's questions. It's not just the NHS. It's in the prison system. It's in the education system. It is all over our institutions. And it's like a plague. It's a cancer on our society. It's a cancer on the minds of the youth. It's a ongoing battle with reality here. But at least it's now being brought up again in Parliament. You know, female pupils too scared to use shared toilets over fear of sexual intimidation or assault. Shared toilets, ladies and gentlemen, at schools. Come on. I keep going back to it. I think I took a picture when I was walking past one of these old schools in Glasgow or Edinburgh. And they've actually got separate entrances. They've got a girls' and a boys' entrances. This is how far we've plunged as a society, ladies and gentlemen. I've said it too many times, but we keep, you know, finding new depths of retardation. It just gets worse and worse and worse. But not even 200 people listening. Get this broadcast shared, ladies and gentlemen. It's unacceptable stuff. I know he's probably actually doing better things on a Friday night, to be fair. A male prisoner serving life for murder in a women's prison and is able to get an operation to reduce his Adam's apple. Again, we brought this up on the Niall Fraser show. I think, you know, just take the Niall Fraser show to Horrid. I think that's what we should do. Mr. Finlay concluded, my party believes all government time and money should be devoted to fixing Scotland's public services, not on radical fringe policies. It's not even radical fringe policy, Russell. It's plain lies. It's unadulterated filth and this contradiction with reality. I wouldn't call it a fringe policy. I'd call it, it's like an attack on humanity. It's not a fringe policy. That is where we stand. It is where the mainstream Scotland stands too, but John Swinney just doesn't seem to get it. Well, I think we'll have to see a backtrack. Like we said in the last show, these 86 MSPs that voted for the trans nonsense, they are in a pit of despair, trying to climb out. We've already seen the first people trying to attempt to climb out of this reality trap. They're trying to climb out. It's the Labour Party. I don't think Jackie Bailey's going to be able to make the climb, but the rest of the party might hoist her up. They're trying to escape this gender nonsense. They're trying to make it out the hole they've created for themselves. At least Labour have the sort of balls to climb. And we're actually starting to see some semblance of, sensible things coming from the Scottish Labour Party. But this is the thing, you know, they're floundering in the polls because of Keir Starmer. They have to make some moves in order to make it happen. The leader of Scottish Labour also made reference to the Sandy Peggy case and said it was unnecessary distraction from the country's real issues. No, it isn't. It's not an unnecessary distraction. It is the core issue. It's the fundamental issue that is stopping Scotland correcting anything. We can't correct anything until we've got people correctly sexed and put in the right toilets, or they can put themselves in the right toilets and they're not mentally ill. We're not casting this mental illness across the land like a cloud of radioactive waste that's corrupting minds. It's destroying societies. It's destroying families. It's destroying bodies. It's people's bodies here we're talking about. You know, these people that fall down the trans trap door. The Labour Party is not going to be there to help them. The Greens are not going to be there to help them. The SNP are not going to be able to help them. They're going to be left on their own. All these people who fell down the trans trap door. Because and a lot of it leads to just suicide, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, they're told it's a reversible thing, that these puberty blockers are a reversible thing. It's irreversible. It's a lot of nonsense, but yet they pollute the minds of the young. They introduce it to the education system like it's science, when it's the exact opposite of science, and it's just plain lies. But we all know that here on the Niall Fraser Show, and I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak. Why do I have a Homer Simpson gif on repeat? I don't know. I like to do things differently here on the Niall Fraser Show. This is supposed to represent John Swinney backing off. This is the Labour Party backing off. This is what all the political parties in Scotland will do. And you can't see my cursor here, but I'm moving it about furiously over Homer Simpson as he's entering the bush. They see the mistake they've done, and they are going back into the bush. They're retracting. So I'll take that off. That might be annoying people. Maybe they want to see my pretty face, my new haircut, and my beard trim. Anyway. It's an unnecessary distraction, says Labour. Anna Sarwar told the First Minister 1 in 6 Scots is on an NHS waiting list. This is the thing with it, that, Scottish Labour, that, they just can't seem to have any other issue apart from the NHS. This is their core thing. It's like their hobby horse, the NHS. Everything that they, and we'll see that later on when we go to the Labour conference review, but this is they're laser focused on the NHS. Some may think that's the correct way to tackle it. Some may think it's I wouldn't tailor myself to this one issue all the time. Of course the NHS needs to be improved, but don't make it your everything. Don't make it everything that the Labour Party's about. So 1 in 6 Scots is on a waiting list. I mean, that is actually truly shocking figures, but there is an NHS crisis with lives being lost. So when will John Swinney, Neil Gray and the SNP government stop focusing on disciplining a nurse, and instead of supporting NHS staff, getting patients treated, clearing the backlogs, stopping the need for patients spending thousands of pounds to go private, and ending the 8 a.m. rush for GP appointments? In response, Mr. Swinney accused the Conservatives of sowing division. I mean, this is the classic, the greatest dividers in our society are the SNP. Going back as long as you want, they always, they fuck Scotland up as much as they possibly can. And then it used to be Boris Johnson, then it was Rishi Sunak, then it was Liz Truss, and now it's Keir Starmer. And it's just this constant, converting hatred of whatever Prime Minister it is. It doesn't matter if it's Tory, Labour, it could be anyone. It could be a Lib Dem leader for all we care. They're going to convert hatred of that person into votes. That's what the SNP do. It's what they've always done. And it's what they always will do. It's what keeps them afloat. In response, Mr. Swinney accused the Conservatives of sowing division. I mean, come off it, John. Full on John. Full blown John. He claimed that the law prevents him from commenting on the Sandy Peggy case, previously citing sub judice, but this is a lot of shit. Sorry for swearing so early in the show. Generally, it takes me a while to get angered enough to start swearing. But John Swinney, he's just talking a lot of shite here. He's just talking pish. Everybody else is commenting on it. It doesn't, Guerrilla TV at the Labour conference. We'll probably play that video. It's hilarious. It was similar to what I said about the SNP, wasn't it? However, this stance has been disputed by a certain legal expert. Mr. Swinney went on, if I was to comment on the case, I would be in danger of breaking the law. A lot of shite. I believe in the rule of law, and nobody will persuade me to break the rule of law in this parliament. Again, a lot of shite. It's I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I want to deflect. I want to be like Teflon Don, and the bullets can ping off me. No. He's got the full right to talk about this. In fact, it's his government's position. Mr. Swinney did say the Equality Act allows for trans people to be excluded for single-sex or separate sex facilities, but he added that these decisions needed to be made on a case-by-case basis. So what are we going to say? This person's had their willy chopped off so they can come in. This person's had their Adam's apple shaved. So this, what criteria are we going to put on this? What case by case? I mean, are we really going to devote so much time and effort, so much resources to going through these case by case situations of men trying to enter women's changing rooms, women's prisons, women's institutions, Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre? Are we actually going to go case by case and waste time, resource, and energy when we all know it's a big farce? We all know it's a lot of shit. We all know that there's two sexes, male and female, and that's it. And there is no interplay between the two. Crying out loud, on a case-by-case basis. And that managers need to balance the needs of the trans person to use such a facility against the needs of other members of staff. Oh, we need to balance it out. There is no balancing act to be had here. Earlier in the week, Mr. Swinney confirmed that it does not regret voting for the controversial Gender Reform Recognition Bill, the GRR. The GRR that we all, in our capacity as reasonable, rational thinking human beings, opposed outside Parliament numerous times. I burned a book for crying out loud. And everyone says, "Niall, don't burn a book." Well, it's exactly what's happening. I had to sort of visualize for everyone what the hell's going on. So that, they backed the gender recognition that would have allowed anyone over the age of 16 to legally change their sex without medical certification. The move, however, was subsequently blocked by the UK government, thank God, because it's ridiculous, who used special legislation to prevent it becoming law. Many political observers believe that the public's fury at the GRR plans was one matter which eventually led to the resignation of former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. If you don't think, and I wish I had a picture of Isla Bryson, let's sort of for clarity here, just to sort of illustrate my point. I mean, this is a classic image here. Let's see if we can make this bigger. Right, let's share this one just for a second, just to show just how ridiculous this is. Let's bring this up. For God's sake. So because, I made, the video at the time that I made was something like, just because a guy dresses as Barbie. I said this in a party political broadcast. I said this in my election speech to STV. And I was actually surprised that they aired it on television. On national TV, I was there saying, just because a guy dresses up like Barbie in pink handbags with a wee umbrella and a wee pink jacket, that we're supposed to just put him in a women's prison. A rapist who was allowed to go when I think he was out on remand. He was charged with the crime. They were waiting for the court date. He was at a college studying beauty therapy when he's tanning women. The whole thing is just absolutely sickening. But let's remove this just to sort of illustrate the point there. And we'll be back to that. So if you don't think that Isla Bryson case, and you've got the famous press conference where, the journalist tied her up in knots and she got actually frustrated. I mean, you can't win that argument. That's the thing. None of these politicians can win this argument. Say it's like an 80-20 matter. No, it's like 100-0 or 99-1. Maya Fostater, CEO of human rights charity Sex Matters, said John Swinney and NHS Scotland are simply wrong about the Equality Act. It does not require, as they have said, that employers make case-by-case decisions about excluding any individual trans-identifying employee from facilities provided for the opposite sex. Employers are required by the 1992 workplace regulations to provide separate sex facilities for toilets, washing and changing. They can only do this by being clear about who can use which facilities. This is not up for negotiation. John Swinney says the law is absolutely clear, but he's hiding behind mistaken draft guidance from NHS Scotland. He says he stands for the rule of law, but he is quoting Stonewall law. Stonewall. Stonewall, this evil institution. He said it's very disappointing, or she added, it's very disappointing to see this from the Scottish Government. Well, we get just these. The Scottish Government is, it's ruled by crazy people. They had Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater as government ministers, for crying out loud. These people are absolutely batshit crazy. They're nonsense. And Lorna Slater, just in her brief time as minister, she's going to end up costing us, the taxpayer, the Scottish Government, millions, hundreds of millions of pounds for her botched deposit return scheme. She's there for what was it, a year and a half, government minister, cost us millions. Absolutely shocking. But let's get some videos up. Let me see. John Swinney. So we'll share this tab. I'll get this to the stage. I'll get my wee face away. This is, I actually couldn't believe, we'll get the banner in so you can see. So this, I couldn't believe that such a simple statement would be like 71,000 views, like 2.2 thousand likes. I mean, it is ridiculous. This could and should bring down Swinney like it brought down his predecessor, Sturgeon. Impossible to argue that a woman should have to change next to a biological man. Impossible. He and his government can skirt being the word that everyone's loving, skirt round the issue all they want. But the fact remains that they brought forth the madness. Now they must deal with the consequences. Now they must revel in the madness that they have brought forth. And I suggest that the Swinney and, the SNP and the Lib Dems and the Greens start climbing out of the hole that they've dug themselves right behind Labour. Because Labour have at least seen the error of their ways. They are starting to climb out of the hole between reality and fiction, in between the folds of space and time. These people are lost in oblivion, but they need to start climbing out. But let's watch the video. And this is from Mandy Rhodes, Killer Question by Lindsay Booze, at Lindsay Booze, because FM can't ride two horses at the same time, arguing that he stands by the Equality Act and provision for single-sex spaces, while his government is in court arguing against sex and in Equality Act, meaning biological sex. Almost 1 million views on this. You tell me that this isn't like a crucifixion of John Swinney. This is an absolute annihilation. Just look at him withering away. He looks like a deer in the headlights, without any audio at all. You could watch this with no audio at all, and you could think this guy is absolutely withering away. Doesn't know what he's talking about. In his heart of hearts, John Swinney does not want to be defending this shit. Has he not got a disabled wife? What happens is that if his wife was in the changing rooms, would he allow a man pretending to be a woman who might also be pretending to be a doctor treater? That's the thing with this doctor, this Beth Upton. And I say it with no hyperbole at all. If this person walked into my ward and I was getting treated for any illness and come in and they were pretending to be a woman, I would also, therefore, infer that they're pretending to be a doctor as well. I don't make any qualms about that statement at all. It should nullify this Dr. Beth Upton's. Her PhD should be burnt. It should be set on fire. Should have to sit her exams again. That's what should happen. But anyway, let's watch the video. I've talked about it too much. Let's watch it.
Are there any circumstances, First Minister, where women should share changing rooms with biological males?
Well, the guidance makes all of that clear.
Just listen to the start of that question. The answer's no, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. The answer's no.
Are there any circumstances, First Minister, where women should share changing rooms with biological males?
Well, the guidance makes all of that clear as to what is the considerations that have got to be taken into account by any employer. Well, well, as I've set out to Parliament, I'm a believer in the rule of law, and the rule of law makes this crystal clear of the obligations that are on employers and public sector bodies, and they're all there for people to read, and I've just put them on the record in Parliament.
Do you stand by the arguments your government is making at the Supreme Court, has made at the Supreme Court, that a woman in the Equality Act is defined as a biological woman and a person with a gender recognition certificate saying that they're a woman?
I am not going to comment on live.
That's what your government is arguing in court.
I would respectfully refer you to Section 1 of the Judiciary and Courts Act Scotland 2008, because I'm not going to comment on live proceedings.
That is the argument your government is making. Do you stand by that argument?
I'm sorry, but I am not going to comment on
You've
live
gone to court. You've gone all the way to the Supreme Court making that argument.
Well, it doesn't matter how many times, Lindsay, you ask me that question. I am not going to comment on live legal proceedings. I would be breaking the law if I did so, and I will not do it.
It won't be breaking anything, ladies and gentlemen. And you can see probably the person behind them is the advisor. This person right at the end of the frame there. Is he there on a field trip? Is he there on a school trip? This person behind them. Oh, for crying out loud, John. This is full-on John, ladies and gentlemen. Let's play the video of the full-on John. This is, he did say that we're going to see a new John Swinney. We're going to see a new, improved, full-on John.
Do you not accept that you'll have failed as First Minister, particularly if you're in office until 2031, like you hope, if those legally binding targets are missed?
Well, let me have a good go at it, Connor. And, you've got full-on John Swinney just now, and I'm going to do...
Is this what full-on John Swinney
This is what, believe you me, this is full-on John Swinney. And, frankly, like John Swinney's never been before. Mm-hmm. So it is full-on.
Gee, that fills me with dread. Full-on John. You wouldn't like to meet that at a pub or at a conference dinner in the early hours. Oh, it's full-on John. He actually, he compared himself to Bruce Willis. People used to say I was Bruce Willis. He was John Swinney, apparently. It's these labeled nicknames. This guy is just so contemptible. But this interview should have been ended 10 seconds in.
Are there any circumstances, First Minister, where women should share changing rooms with biological males?
There's where the interview should have ended, ladies and gentlemen. No. Next question. No. Next question. Stop asking silly questions. If you get asked silly questions, you get silly answers, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I was always told. So that's the John Swinney video. We're going to move on to a humorous video made by our friends at Mercurius. So Mercurius, they've not been doing that much work recently, I must say. During the election cycles, they always ramp up. But, they need to be better. They need to be better at, in between the cycles. It's the space in between the election cycles. We can't just have this, we've got 5 years of a government that just shits on us from above. They piss on us and tell us it's raining. And then 6 months before the election, that's when everyone starts getting, no, we need to be full-on Johns in the meantime. But let's watch Mercurius video. And, full credit goes to Mercurius on this. Really good.
Neil, thanks for coming to answer some questions with your amazing intellect. The first one I have is, can you spell the word Scotland? Neil Gray, can you just tell me what the answer to 6 + 6 is? Okay, then let's try this one. Can you define what a woman is? Do you even know what the letters in NHS stand for? What is the answer to 2 + 2? Do you know that one? Do you know what party you're in, Mr. Gray? Do you know your arse from your elbow? Do you even know what a tribunal is, by the way? Neil, how did you actually get to be an MSP? By writing the Jim will fix it?
Great video. Oh, great video. We'll get that done in a minute. Great video. And again, it sort of brings up this Homer Simpson gif again. This is what I can't get this out of my brain. This is what they're all trying to do. Avoid the question at all costs. Retreat into the bush. Retreat to the comfort of Holyrood, to the office, and talk to other advisors. Get some scripted answers and make them, John Swinney quoting the Equality Act, quoting these acts of law, which mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. We all know that men shouldn't be in women's changing rooms, men shouldn't be in women's prisons, men shouldn't be in women's sports. But we go on. We've got some more bookmarks. We've already half an hour in this segment, and we've not even got to the big one. I think the big one's probably going to be the Labour segment tonight, but we are talking about white replacement after Labour, and that can be quite a contentious topic, ladies and gentlemen. But we go boldly where those we go boldly where no man has gone before. Maya Forstater. Let's get this up again. Let's get the Giffy Homer Simpson away. So let's see if we can get this big. Here we go. Our letter to the Cabinet Secretary for Health and Social Care, published today. So this is probably this might be the letter that brings them down. I mean, there's no, it's basic, again, it's all legal jargon to me. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert, I'm not versed in legalese. But I don't think I need to be, if I'm honest. Dear Cabinet Secretary, as you will know, as the statutory regulator for equality in Scotland, the Equality and Human Rights Commission promotes and enforces compliance with the Equality Act of 2010. I'm writing with respect to recent media coverage about policies and practices relating to access to single-sex changing facilities for staff in NHS Fife and the forthcoming NHS Scotland Guide to Transitioning. I mean, the NHS Scotland Guide to Transitioning. What the guide should be, don't. A single page, don't. In particular, we are concerned about the media's depiction of the policy for which you have oversight and whether it is likely to comply with and accurately represent the Equality Act 2010 provisions. Our interest is in ensuring that health bodies in Scotland have an accurate understanding of the operation of the Equality Act 2010 as it relates to provision of single-sex services and spaces. In particular, it is important that providers are designing policies which take into account the rights of all affected protected characteristic groups and which take steps to mitigate the risk of discrimination. Furthermore, the Workplace Health, Safety and Welfare Regulations of 1992 state that changing facilities will not be suitable unless they include separate facilities for or separate use of facilities by men and women where necessary for reasons of propriety. The Health and Safety Executive has issued an improved code of practice and guidance in relation to these regulations. We have written to NHS Fife to highlight their obligations to the Equality Act 2010, specifically in relation to the protection of individuals from discrimination and harassment on the basis of protected characteristics. Characteristics including sex, religion, belief, or gender reassignment. We have further drawn their attention to the duty under the Equality Act 2010, Specific Duty Scotland Regulations 2012, as amended, to access and review proposed new and revised policies and practices against the free needs defined in Section 149, in brackets 1 of the Equality Act 2010 of eliminating discrimination, advancing equality of opportunity, and fostering good relations. In the meantime, we would urge you to consider how the Scottish Government can play a role in ensuring that NHS Scotland and other bodies are meeting their legal obligations under the Equality Act 2010 and welcome a meeting with you to discuss in more detail alongside the chair of the EHRC Scotland Committee, Dr. Leslie Sawyers. I am copying this letter to the First Minister, John Swinney. Yours sincerely, John Kirkpatrick, Chief Executive. So, I mean, I think in terms of like the For Women Scotland, the women's rights movements, this is like a kill shot. This is, they're writing this, you'll see the post here by Maya Forstater. Boom! The fireworks have went off. The EHRC writes to ScotGov and NHS Scotland. You know, I'm not sure if it's the boom we're all looking for here. How about we just get a huge big petition sorted of all the rational thinking, normal, you know, people that aren't defective, don't have defective brains? Maybe a huge petition would do better, because that would actually, you know, they would think, you know, they'd think on it if it was going to affect their vote share. That's what the SNP would only change anything if it was going to affect their votes. That's the truth. And then to finish off, we've got an example of how it's done. We've got an example of how you actually just do things. We've got a great example. Here we go. This is how it's done. This is how a leader acts. This is how everyone across the West is in envy of having an actual leader, an actual man in charge. Here we go. This is how it should be. This is how a leader speaks.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it, because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply, because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Just sensational stuff here by Trump. Just calling them out right to their faces. And this, well, I think it's a woman, has got the temerity to say, oh, we'll see you in court. We will force men into women's sports, regardless of what you think. We'll see you in court, Mr. Trump. The whole thing is just a lot of bollocks, ladies and gentlemen. But that was, where is the segment? The SNP Gender Woes Deepen. And now we go on to our second segment of the evening. And Jesus, the Labour Conference Review. Oh my God. I can't believe I'm doing this. Well, the Labour Conference started out rather harshly, I would say, for Labour itself. Here we go. It's only 8 seconds, don't worry. Let's bring this up. Started off with a protest outside. It's not often that you see a protest outside Labour conferences. But again, what did we say on the Niall Fraser show, ladies and gentlemen? What are we learning here? Labour are tanking in the polls. Why are they tanking in the polls? Well, one, the Prime Minister's Keir Starmer, and he's you know, he didn't even have a honeymoon period as a Prime Minister. You know, it was straight into just probably the worst premiership that Britain's ever seen, with, you know, no looking back at all. Says he's going to smash the gangs. Says he's going to stop immigration. All of these things just continue unfettered. You know, jailing other people accused of being far right for calling out this, you know, Islamic terrorist attack in Southport. You had the Al Qaeda manual, ladies and gentlemen, but there's still people in jail. So it started off with a protest outside the Labour conference, and like I said, it's not very often that these type of things happen outside the Labour conference. These are usually the ones that send protesters, but now they're getting a wee taste of their own medicine, it seems. It's a shame, isn't it? Oh, it's a crying shame for Labour. An utter crying shame. I feel so bad for them having to put up with protesters. But why? You know, this is the Grangemouth. the Grangemouth situation. So, if you're unaware, Labour promised to step in and save the jobs at Grangemouth. They promised to save the jobs at Grangemouth, and what's happened? They've all went.
The first speaker today is our United General Secretary, Sharon Graham. And I want to firstly express our thanks to Sharon for her unwavering support.
It's just a small video, but we've got more, I believe. So this is what, it starts with a protest. That's not what Anna Sauer would have been looking for. And we're actually going to use some SNP media here. We're actually going to use some SNP media here. Can you believe it, ladies and gentlemen? I'm using the weapons of the enemy here.
We would step in to save the jobs at the refinery and to invest in that transition, and we would put hundreds of millions of pounds behind it to make it a reality.
You said you'd save the jobs during the election, and now you're not.
This is a privately owned company.
Did you mislead the voters? As your own MP, Brian Leishman, suggests that you misled the voters during the election.
This is a private company.
You specifically said you would save the jobs at the refinery.
This is a privately owned company, as you know.
Do you think you're an apology to the workers who were relying on you to save their jobs? Do you think you're an apology to the voters who thought you were going to save the jobs?
This is a privately owned company. This is a privately owned company.
But you made the promise. You made the promise during the election. Do you think they've let them down?
This is a privately owned company.
You made the promise during the election. Do you think
See that smile? Let's see if I can get the frame.
You made the promise during the election.
There you go. That's why Anna Sauer will never be First Minister. That smile right there. I couldn't believe it when this cretin was smirking at this question. He promised to step in and save these jobs, and it's not a laughing matter, Anis. As much as you'd like it to be, this is not a laughing matter at all. All these people, and it's not just the workers in Grangemouth, specifically the workers. It's the area of Grangemouth. It's all these workers are living and working the area. They're going into businesses. They're spending money. They're driving here and there. This is going to devastate the area. Doesn't he know that? Shops all shut, bakeries all shut down. The sandwich makers. All these businesses that rely on the workforce being at Grangemouth in the first place. And he's just smirking away. I think it's despicable. Honestly, I really do. But that's why I think he's unelectable. And that's why he's been protested outside. It's so strange to see a protest outside the Labour conference, but here we are.
Do you think
this
is a
privately owned company?
Brian Leishman thinks the Labour government have let down the workers and the local people. Do you agree with him?
Look, this is a privately owned company.
Yeah, but Brian Leishman is your MP, he's a Labour MP. You stood beside him during the election making this promise. He says they've let them down. Do you think they've let them down?
This is a privately owned company that has made a decision.
You keep saying that, but you failed to save the jobs in Grangemouth. You accept that now?
Colin, I don't own Grangemouth. It's a privately owned.
You accept that the promise you made to save the jobs has failed.
It's a privately owned company.
It's almost unwatchable, if I'm honest. It's almost unwatchable. So it starts off with a protest. We've got Anna Sauer's empty promises. But let's see what they're calling for in their conference speech. Let's share this tab instead. And bear with me, I'm going to, I've not watched this in its entirety. We're not going to watch an hour of this speech. Don't be daft. Nothing. Podium's empty.
Because the truth is that while we got rid of a Tory government that was doing so much damage, the reality is that Scotland is still being held back by a tired SNP government that's lost its way. Whether it's in our NHS, our economy, or our schools, the SNP is taking Scotland in the wrong direction. We will set out what a new direction in May 2026 will mean for you, your family, your community, and our country. And let me tell you why that matters. Because Scotland isn't just our home. It's a country of immense potential. The story of my family is Scotland's story. From my
No, it's not. No, it's not.
grandfather arriving in Lossiemouth with nothing but a shirt on his back in the 1940s, to me becoming the leader of this great party, my family's story is symbolic of the opportunity that Scotland has.
See, the thing is, we'll take this away. This isn't the story of Scotland. If the story of Scotland is going to a private school and having private education and then going straight into politics, then yes, that's the Scottish story. But I don't think that's the Scottish story, ladies and gentlemen. Are you serious? Are you serious? Is this the Scots story? You know, raised with a silver spoon in your mouth, go to private education, be shunted into politics because your dad has tons of money and he's the governor of Punjab in Pakistan. Is that the Scots story? Come off it, Anis. Anyway, we want to find there's key points in here. What's Matthew Middleton saying? I might be missing something, but if the SNP is in government, how is Graham's situation Anis Sarwar's fault? Well, this was a UK-wide thing. It was the general election, Matthew. It was, they said during the general election, they're expecting the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, to do something about it, which he didn't. He must have made assurances to Anis Sarwar that he could not fulfill it. So, this we're trying to find a few key points in this speech, because he calls for a Scottish type of Doge, a Department of Government Efficiency. And it shows you that they're so bereft of ideas that they just copy people. And we'll go on, we'll find the clip. But who are they copying? Who are Labour copying? Well, they're copying the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. And who else are they copying? Well, they're copying yours truly, Niall Fraser. Thank you very much. Yours truly. That's who they're copying. Maybe I shouldn't have come up with it. I mean, the policy itself is actually golden, but they're copying it. Let's find it. We get a department at Doge. Oh, NHS.
They won't even know what a fax machine is. So from e-prescriptions to digital records to tackle the crisis in social care and to deliver world-class public services, we need a growing and thriving economy. But we also need to make sure we're spending every pound of your money well. Because this SNP government is addicted to wasting your money.
Right, so this is it. This has got to be the preamble before he dives into this new incredible idea that is the Doge, Department of Government Efficiency.
And just two examples make this so clear. Take the ferry scandal. Now, it may be funny seeing a First Minister launching a ship with painted on windows, but actually for island communities, the ferry scandal has been catastrophic. Families separated, businesses forced to close, health and social care services pushed to breaking point. If this was a train line between Glasgow and Edinburgh, rather than the ferry between Arran and Ardrossan, it would be...
I bet he couldn't even tell you how much the economy in Arran's worth. I've been to Arran. I took a boat to Arran and I spoke to one of the head farmers on Arran. And he educated me as to the problems that having the ferry actually causes. Well, one, you're not getting them into tourists. I know people who own hotels in Arran. I know the farmers in Arran. Arran's quite a farming-rich island. It's got three amazing golf courses as well. I've got the 13 hole, I think it's the Shiskin golf course, one of the best in the world. And people have been denied to go there because there's no ferries. But the actual economy is worth £60 million a year. And the farmer, what's the farmer? What's his problem? Well, he can't get his livestock off the island to sell them. He can't get the fertilizer off the mainland to the island. This is huge catastrophic problems here. Of course the ferries are a problem, Anis. Of course.
Long before now. But instead, the SNP has left communities behind and saddled the Scottish taxpayer with a soaring bill for ferries running years and years late and £300 million over budget. The fact is, the impact of the SNP's wasteful incompetence is felt across every part of Scotland. And take the example of the new Barlinnie prison, a project first estimated to cost £100 million, now on track to cost £1 billion. To put that into context, the SNP is spending the same amount of new money on a new Barlinnie prison as the cost of building the 5-star luxury Atlantis Hotel in Dubai, which has over 1,500 bedrooms, spas, a wellness centre, 17 restaurants and cafes, an aquarium, a swimming pools, and a water park with no less than 105 slides. And they think that's value for money for a prison for murderers and rapists in Scotland. So we will end SNP waste once and for all. As First Minister, I will respect every penny of your money. And that's why we will have our own Department of Government Efficiency to stop the waste, deliver value for money for you, the taxpayer. And that value for money will extend to every part of government. Because right now, Scots are paying more and more to serve the ever-expanding machinery of government. And the public are getting less and less from their services in return. You know, Scotland is now home to no fewer than 131 quangos. There are now more quangos than MSPs. £6.6 billion is being spent on these bodies every year. And the waste is so bad that even the Auditor General and the Information Commissioner have started playing quango bingo with each other, asking, have you heard of this one? Have you heard of that one? And at the same time, services get worse and ministers blame everyone else but themselves. So I can tell you now that as First Minister, I will end this culture of waste. I'll respect people's hard-earned money and get value for every penny, because conference, that's the new direction we will deliver together.
You know, I don't think he's very good at speeches, Anis. I really don't. Where's the jokes? What, 106 slides? Is that the joke? Is that the joke? I mean, what he's saying is correct, right? This is the thing. What he's saying is absolutely correct. You know, it's the quangocracy. This is why you're seeing images of Elon Musk getting handed like a platinum chainsaw, because it represents cutting the bureaucracy. Labour seem to have tapped into that narrative, and now this is all in an attempt to regain the ground that they've lost having Starmer, the regain the ground that they've lost with the Grangemouth upset. They're actually starting to speak like normal people. Believe you me, see if the Grangemouth thing didn't happen, see if Keir Starmer was doing a good job, none of this would have happened. None of these things would have happened. But, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Who are they copying? Well, they're copying the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. And who else are they copying? Oh, it's yours truly, Niall Fraser. Thank you very much. It flatters me all so much, Anis. Who else are they copying? Let's see if we can find it.
is restoring our schools to the standards we were once so proud of.
Right, so this must be it. This must be it, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is. And I'm not even that bothered about him plagiarising my idea. I'm not. I'm not even bitter about it. Because it's the right move. But the thing is, all the other parties should be adopting this. What he's about to say, what he's going to go on to say, is something that I proposed, 2 years ago?
That's why we will take the action needed to make our schools thrive again, and above all, be safe spaces for our young people to learn and for our teachers to teach. I've listened to teachers, pupils, and their parents, and the feedback is clear. Schools and classrooms should be spaces for learning, growing, and flourishing. But the situation today is this. Teachers are working in fear and anxiety as physical attacks on staff have skyrocketed. Staff are noticing the attention span of our pupils is shortening. Bullying is once more on the rise, with cyberbullying falling children inside and outside the school day. There are hundreds of sickening examples of vicious attacks filmed on mobile.
I'll just pause it now, but when you listen to this speech, and then you listen to my conference speech, and you tell me that they've not been watching it. It's so very similar.
And spread on social media channels. I mean, there's not just the trauma of the violence itself, but the violation of dignity that comes from cyberbullying. There can never be a repeat of the sickening attack that took place in Wade Academy in Fife, when a young girl was viciously attacked by a fellow pupil in a classroom while the entire ordeal was filmed on a mobile phone. More and more pupils are feeling unsafe in our classrooms. The mental health for our young people is being undermined with catastrophic results. This has to end. That's why, as First Minister, I will ban mobile phones in classrooms and make schools safe, calm places for learning once again.
It's a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant idea. Ban phones and make classrooms safe for teachers and pupils again. Wonder where he could have got that idea, ladies and gentlemen. Well, let's move on to this. Nowhere near as glamorous, nowhere near as illustrious as the Hydro. It's just me on a stage, on a wooden stage, in what looks like a bowling hole or something like that, with a projector that I've not got any images on. I've not got any huge background. Don't need it.
Yeah. Oh, so I've got 20 minutes to play with here instead of the 20 seconds the STV gave me, so I've got plenty of time to run through everything, right? So it really does feel like being at home while I'm here.
Right, let's see. I've got some jokes in here as well. Let's see, I think this is their message. Events, I'm glad to say, the Scottish Family Party came out head and shoulders above every other candidate. We wiped the floor with every other candidate in the hustings, and we were really well supported. So these hustings are a great arm and a great tool for us to relay our message. And we even managed to squeeze out a viral clip for one of the hustings as well, which was excellent. So we were able to get our messaging out nationally as well via the STV, albeit it's only 20 seconds. How are you supposed to condense a political message into 20 seconds? I don't know. But we managed to do it anyway. It was like the ultimate puzzle. I mean, how are you supposed to do this? Again, I'm trying to think what I said. I said, if you really think that a person can dress up like Barbie and because he's clutching a bit of paper, that he should be able to get into women's prisons,
then go ahead and vote for one of the other parties. Go ahead and vote for one of the machine parties, the machine candidates, the robo candidates. Otherwise, vote for us. That was our 20-second messages to the STV. So just by the action of entering the election, the Scottish Family Party benefited hugely. We got our name out there for a relatively cheap price of the £500 deposit. Thank you very much, Richard. And the money spent on leaflets. And this is another thing that I wanted to touch upon, is we spent the absolute bare minimum and achieved the result that we got. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a huge indicator as to how many votes we can actually generate by just people power, by just being on the streets, by just delivering leaflets, by talking and having conversations with people. There's no need to spend any extravagant money on billboards or advertisements or this, that, and other. We don't need it. We are the groundswell. We are the movement. Campaigning in person on the streets, going through the doors, interacting with constituents, this is what delivered the result. We didn't buy any expensive billboards. We didn't need any expensive billboards. And this result was attained through hard work and perseverance. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone in this room that helped during the campaign, big or small. It really does make a difference. So thanks very much. So what are we looking at next? What do I think we should be looking at next? In my view, in order to maintain momentum going into the Holyrood election in 2026, we have to be running in almost every conceivable election, through local councils to Westminster by-elections, if they turn up. As well as the need, we need to be forcing our way into the media by way of stunts, similar to bricking up the Sandyford, similar to calling Hamza Youssef out. We need to be creating the news. Yeah? So in a world that's such turbulent times, as I mentioned before, we need an era-defining, an epoch.
Era-defining, where is it? Here we go. This is the level of importance that I lay upon this policy of banning phones at schools. Era-defining, epoch-defining, because it goes against the technocracy. It goes against this notion that you're supposed to be handcuffed to a phone. And I'll give you a wee anecdote for a while. I at one point in my life, I felt this pull of Facebook, of social media, and one day I decided to just throw my phone away. And I lived years without my phone. I travelled the world without my phone. And what a great few years that was. No distractions. There's nothing in your pocket. There's no vibrating. You're just in the moment. You're talking to people on the subway, on the bus, on the plane, like a normal person, like we used to communicate. But that's the level of importance. And the anecdote is, I lived, and my work was telling me at the time, no, you need a phone. And I'm saying, no, I don't need a phone. And it was this constant back and forth. Anyway, we'll go back to the video. This is the level of importance that I lay upon banning phones for schools. It's so drastically important. And you'll hear my reasoning here as well. But thank you, Anis Sarwar, for taking upon, for watching this video, one, and for two, stealing the policy as your own. Yeah, and I'm not even bitter about it. It's a good thing that parties are talking about this. It's a good thing that, the crowd at the Labour Party is clapping like seals at this, because they all know themselves it's the right policy. They all know that this is the correct move.
Defining policy. There's such turbulent times, as I mentioned before. We need an era-defining, an epoch-defining policy. And I'll tell you all today, and nobody knows this, not even Richard. Not even Richard. Nobody knows what I'm going to say when I'm getting up here. It's incredible.
This is quite funny as well. I like to pull tricks on people all the time. I really do. And I lay a lot of importance on trust. That the thing is, if I turn up to a speech, an event, a protest, whatever it is, nobody gets to see what I've written. Nobody gets to see what I've said before I've said it. I think that's really important. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm an idiot. But I think it's very important that it remains a secret until you say it. And it's no good. And this is a natural reaction you're getting here for the Scottish Family Party Conference. They don't know what I'm about to say. This is the thing. It's natural. Everyone in the Labour conference there would have known that Anas Sarwar is going to say, I'm going to ban phones for school. Nobody knows what I'm going to say here.
Nobody knows what I'm going to say when I'm getting up here. It's incredible. But this is, again, it's a testament to the Scottish Family Parties, their trustworthiness in me to say what I want. You know, we are a free speech party, absolute. So I think I've found this era-defining policy. Nobody knows what I'm going to say here. Nobody knows what I'm going to say at all. Nobody knows, but I'm going to relay it to you now. I really did think it was important that I relay this message. I really did. So let's start with the problem first, and then I'll get to the solution. The problem may be alien to a lot of us in this room today, because it's a generational or a technological divide here. When I was at school, there was no mobile phones. Basically, no mobile phones. There was no social media. And there wasn't such a symbiotic type attachment to smartphones. We have such a problem in our schools with bullying, in person and online. The common denominator being the mobile phones. And yet nobody wants to talk about it. When you see videos of pupils being attacked by other pupils, maybe teachers getting attacked by pupils, please know that these attacks are preordained. The record button goes on first, and then they attack another pupil. And then, what's worse, this video then follows the victim and the perpetrator for life. It's there for life. It's online forever. So the victim can relive their horrible experience. The perpetrator can relive their own menacing behaviour day after day. But what if I told you that technology already exists to enforce a complete ban on smartphones in our schools? And what if I told you that after implementing such a ban on smartphones, student engagement improves, student behaviour improves, academic performance improves? Yes, indeed it is. Safety and security improves. And even staff retention improves. This is such a simple thing. But if we could implement this, it would make a whole world of difference. You think a pupil doesn't want to be filmed at school, or the fear of being filmed at school. The teacher doesn't want to be filmed during a lesson. You can't possibly conduct a class with all these rings, dings, phone calls, vibrations, all these distractions. And the whole world and classrooms are littered with distractions these days. So how are you supposed to function as a teacher? I don't know. But we should be the party for teachers in education. I really do think that. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that in order to protect the next generation of Scots coming up through our education system, we must implement a Scotland-wide ban on smartphones across all of our schools, all of them. To preserve the innocence of our children in an increasingly digital world, we have to create these digital-free bubbles, air pockets where our people should breathe. Yeah?
Do you not think that's very similar, ladies and gentlemen? But we'll add Anis back to the stage and we'll go back a bit. We'll go back a bit on Anis.
Social media channels. I mean, there's not just the trauma of the violence itself, but the violation of dignity that comes from cyberbullying. There can never be a repeat of the sickening attack that took place in Wade Academy in Fife when a young girl was viciously attacked by a fellow pupil in a classroom while the entire ordeal was filmed on a mobile phone. More and more pupils are feeling unsafe in our classrooms. The mental health for our young people is being undermined with catastrophic results. This has to end. That's why, as First Minister, I will ban mobile phones in classrooms and make schools safe, calm places for learning once again.
Isn't that similar, ladies and gentlemen? In fact, just for posterity, we'll share this one, we'll put this back up, and we'll go again. Oh, we'll go again.
Proves. This is such a simple thing. But if we could implement this, it would make a whole world of difference. You think a pupil doesn't want to be filmed at school, or the fear of being filmed at school. The teacher doesn't want to be filmed during a lesson. You can't possibly conduct a class with all these rings, dings, phone calls, vibrations, all these distractions. And the whole world and classrooms are littered with distractions these days. So how are you supposed to function as a teacher? I don't know. But we should be the party for teachers and education. I really do think that. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that in order to protect the next generation of Scots coming up through our education system, we must implement a Scotland-wide ban on smartphones across all of our schools, all of them.
There you go. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. First, they copy Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet Earth, and soon to be Mars. And then they copy lowly Niall, who's rich in ideas and rich in family and rich in love. Well, let's just preface this. I'm happy that the Labour have come to them senses. I'm happy, and this Labour shouldn't be the only party that copy me. They're way behind the times. I don't have advisors. I don't have access to all the stats and the information that the Labour Party does. I don't have access to huge staff numbers that I can send people and investigate certain things. I don't have that. I've just got me, myself, and Irene. It's just me. How is it? I mean, it might be that this is the natural progression of things, and I'm just ahead of the curve. It might be that. But what he's saying is true. But it is like for like, almost word for word, copying Niall Fraser. He ramps up the speech. You'll see on this. Listen to this. There we go. So that's your Labour review. And this is the thing. This is exactly what racing... RTDL Slot Racing Club. I'm sorry you can't hear. It did say, there was a warning that came up on my screen, Matthew, that there was an issue with the stream. I'm hoping you can hear it. But it told me to stop sharing the screen, which I have. But, see these phone manufacturers, the carriers, they want phones in the hands of as many people as possible, which includes children. I don't think children should have mobile phones until they're about 16, maybe even older than that, until they can learn, until they can sort of, until they've lived a life. It's the social media that is cancelling out their innocence here. And this is what I was getting at this speech at the Scottish Family. But my speech was more about the innocence, protecting the innocence of children, and integrity classrooms. I'm glad Anis has taken I'm on board the Niall Fraser agenda of improving Scotland. I'm glad for it. I really am. But what's taking you so long? What's taking you so long, Anis? This is two things that have come out of the Scottish Labour Party review. The Doge, they're going to take a platinum chainsaw like Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, to the quangocracies. They're going to cut away at government bureaucracy, which I don't believe they'll do. Not one bit. But then they'll I don't think it's. I'm not going to use the word steal. They're not going to steal my policy, because, like I said, once I've put the idea out there, it's in the ether. But the thing is, I think that this is just the natural progression of things. In order to sort of to secure the classrooms, to make them education situations again. That's what I think. We must take phones out of schools. And, I heard on STV News just before I come on the show that it was a bit light on detail. It was a bit light on detail, this speech that Anis made, especially when it comes to banning phones out of school. Well, I'll give you the detail, because I've already thought about it. I'm not just postulating an idea out there without thinking about how am I going to implement it first. There's already companies across the US, across the whole world, international companies that do this type of thing. You put your phones into like RFID pouches. They're then stored for you to collect at the end of the day. And if not, you can put signal blockers in the school. You can make sure that phones are inoperable in the schools. Phones need to be categorized. There is a telephone and a handheld smart computer. No child should have the latter, in my opinion. And you're absolutely right. It wouldn't be so bad if kids were turning up to school with Nokia 3310s or 3330s playing Snake. But the other, exactly, the latter, they're having it is a computer. So you're absolutely right. RTDL, your comments have been stellar the last two shows, I must say. But there is a massive distinction here. And, did I say in my speech that it must be smartphones? I can't remember. But I just think that even any distraction should be eliminated for the classroom. Teachers can't teach, ladies and gentlemen. They just can't. And again, the bullying as well. It's the exact, like I said in my speech, the record button gets hit first, and then they launch into an attack on other people. Then they launch into an attack on a teacher. The record button gets hit first. We must eliminate the phones for the schools. Anyway, that's your Labour review, ladies and gentlemen. That's your Labour review. And then we're going to talk about, for the next half an hour, maximum, we're now going to talk about replacement. And this is probably where you want to share the broadcast. This is probably where you want to settle in, get yourself a coffee, because what you're about to see is quite heavy stuff. Heavy stuff, especially if you, like me, are white-skinned. Because we've got people calling for genocide. We've got people calling white people subhuman dogs. And what I will do is I'll start with my video. That was the Labour conference, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Anis Sarwar stealing ideas off Elon Musk and adopting the Niall Fraser agenda when it comes to schools. But now we're talking about replacement. And what was it that spurred this segment? It was this image here. And this is not just the first of, in fact, we can share this tab because this is a sort of bigger one. We'll get that after now. But here we go. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Anne Boleyn. This is this distortion, this destruction of white culture, of history itself, the rewriting of history. And the white people are being written out of history in almost every single aspect. I mean, just soak this image in, ladies and gentlemen. Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn. And we've got a wee picture here of what Anne Boleyn actually looked like. And here is AMC's depiction of Anne Boleyn. Something that will never be watched, by the way. People will only watch this to clip it up and take the piss out of it. It's absolutely horrendous. But this is now the first time that this thing's happening. White people have been getting written out of history for at least the last 10 years. I know. And just before we go, remember when your mum or dad had to phone the school and you would walk to reception? But the thing is, that was when we had this notion that schools were safe. But let's stick on topic now. We're talking about white replacement here. And this is just the next in, a long list of this perversion of history, this rewriting of history. We had this thing where it was like, black people have always been here in Britain. Patently false. Patently false. And it's not like I'm being racist here. This is the thing. I'm past the point of being called a racist. I don't really care what you think. But this is just the blatant rewriting of history, the blackwashing history. Writing it to the point where white people had no impact on history. It'll not be long before Mozart was black, before Chopin was black. I know, Matthew's right. They've got a black woman playing Jesus Christ now. Again, it's like this war on Christianity, this war on white people with this fakery. And what I really think it is, and I will play my video and you'll start to understand what I'm talking about here. And this is sort of couched in the analogy that if I was to genocide white people, if it was Niall Fraser's job to genocide white people, what would you do? It would take a long, long time to genocide a whole race of people, wouldn't it? It would take a long, long, long time. But they've been at it a long time, haven't they, ladies and gentlemen? Let's play the video.
I've written a script for a movie, maybe an 8-part series on Netflix. I just wanted to run it past you all first. I think it's too far-fetched to ever be picked up, but I'll tell you the plot, and you can tell me what you think. So it all starts with a political movement in a country far, far away, and this political movement is hell-bent on genociding all white people. What an incredibly hard task that would be. Genociding a whole race of people. It would take decades, if not longer. So, undeterred with the task, this political movement starts orchestrating vast and unrelenting movements of non-white people of questionable backgrounds and alien cultures into majority white countries under the guise of asylum. The pace and sheer volume of people moving into majority white countries makes it impossible for proper integration, and inevitably separate culture groups are formed. Crime rises, racial tensions are stoked, social services become less and less available. Then would come the implementation, the deploying of diversity quotas, filling positions of power with non-white people, promoting people based on skin tone alone, hiring people based on skin tone alone, eroding ancient Western meritocratic values, social housing prioritised for newcomers, and the indigenous are overlooked. They then start imbibing anti-white sentiments in the education systems, making sure that the next generations are brought up educated to the evils of the white race and their culture by rewriting history, saying that everything that they have in their countries, all the riches, all the wealth, the very society that whites enjoy is actually ill-gotten gains through the exclusive exploitation of non-white countries. Again, racial tensions are artificially inflamed against white people. A pressure group comes along called Black Lives Matter, requiring that people literally kneel before them. Any condemnation of the group is met with silencing and censorship. And now the game is properly afoot. They start a doctrine of cultural decolonisation, attacking and dismantling everything attached to white culture. Political pressure groups are funded and formed to sow further discontent. Statues are branded racist and torn down. Churches are burned to the ground. Priceless artwork and buildings that took decades to create are gone in minutes. The people that they put in positions of power now start passing speech laws, specifically targeting white people. And here we are. Or rather, that's all the script that I've written for the film. So you tell me, is that too far-fetched, or what?
Well, you tell me, ladies and gentlemen, is that too far-fetched, or what? Would that be made into a Netflix film? This is what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. This is what's happening. Created by Hope Not Hate and Mr. Soros. And Mr. Soros, George Soros, funds all the NGOs, and he gets the back channeling for USAID, you know, the Agency of International Development, gets the back channels there to give all the migrants credit cards to make their way to sub-Saharan Africa, into Europe, and into our economies. That then, you know, they cause, you know, what is it? Insular communities, crime goes up, society sort of fragments. And here we are this very day. Here we are at this very day when we've got shit like this, Anne Boleyn, and it's a black woman playing Anne Boleyn. You know, it might seem like, oh no, it's just a really good actor. No, this is purposeful provocation here. And we're going to go into actual people in Africa right now calling for the genocide of white people. You know, I did tell you that it was going to get quite hot and heavy. Well, here we go. And this will fill you with absolute dread. Well, no, maybe not dread. I mean, I was laughing almost at one of the points, but I was just sickening to hear, because if you can imagine, you know, the sheer like level of ignorance here. So this is Julius Malemba, who's calling for the genocide of 4 million white people that live in South Africa. And when my son was just born, I what was it we got? It was a changing table. I went and bought it from some person off Gumtree or Facebook Marketplace or something like that, and I went and collected it. And the people that I got it off were South African, white South African, and you know, I was talking to them for a while. You know, you get talking because I noticed the South African accent, and I say, "Oh, you're from South Africa," you know. You know, I get quite a lot of flack for talking about the white genocide that's happening in Africa, South Africa. And then they just look at me odd and they say, like, how do you know about that? No, a lot of people know about that. No, you know, because it's one of these verboten topics. You're not allowed to talk about the fact that people in South Africa are acting, you know, the amount of white people that have been slaughtered in their homes by these marauding groups of black people that are just killing based on race is outrageous. And yet there's no, where's the international condemnation? Where's the you know, This should be this person should be designated a terrorist. Let's watch the video and we'll see what he's saying, and then we'll watch the other one. People are saying you can't hear the video. This is a problem. Let me see why this isn't working. Because obviously you need to hear the video. Is it just you, Matt? I mean, what is going on here? You need to hear this video. Let me see. Let me stop sharing it. Let me present it again. Right. You tell me if you can hear it. We'll play for the start again.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we have not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies. Cry babies.
I'm not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now.
I can't give you a guarantee of the future, especially when things are going the way they are.
Subtext.
Especially if things are going the way they are, there will be a revolution in this country, I can tell you now.
We are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now. That means at some future date, we may call for the slaughter of white people. Is that correct?
Let's deal with that at that future date. I don't know what's going to happen.
So you're saying you are not ruling out that in the future, you may very well call for the slaughter of white people?
It may not be me.
Could it be you?
It could be me, yes, but it may not be me.
Yeah, so it could be you. You could, at some future date, call for the slaughter of white people.
Shoot to kill. Hamaza. Kill the poor. The farmer. Kill the poor. The farmer. Brr, pa. Pa.
What he's saying there, if you didn't know, if you didn't hear it quite right at the end, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. So we all know the Boer people that are in South Africa, they're mostly from like Dutch descent. And if these farms weren't run by the Boer farmers, South Africans wouldn't eat. Well, that's the situation. And this is what RTL Slaughter Racing Club's saying. The farms are failing. Because they go in, they kill the farmers, they assume that they can run a farm. They don't, people starve. Simple as that. But this isn't the worst. This isn't the worst. I'm telling you, this isn't the worst one. There's even worse than this. The one that came out the other day was just outrageous. And here we are. Right, tell me quickly if this is going to be working in terms of the sound, okay? And this I thought was just absolutely disturbing. This is where we've got to now in this planet of ours.
The problem that South Africans have right now is that we don't understand white people. White people are inferior species to us. We are Homo sapiens. They've got Neanderthal blood in them. This is the science. And this is not science that was done by black people. It was done by them. You understand? Abu Clive W. Lewis, they were eugenicists. They studied this and they realized that they're inferior to blacks. The white population is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. For us, it makes no sense to descend into the savagery that they have. Whatever land that they're holding on to, either way, their numbers are dwindling. Whatever leadership that they had is dying out as well. And you know about wealth disappearing after the third generation that it's passed down to, you know. So they're on the last generation. We're dealing with the weakest whites that the world has ever seen. So we expect to have Ubuntu, humanity. Unfortunately, by the strictest definition of what a human being is, white people are just below human beings. You are negotiating with an animal, a wild dog that you're trying to train to be tamed, to be upo, you who guards your house. You can never do that. So we're expecting Ubuntu from them. We're like, you stole our land, you butchered our people and everything else, and we just want justice. We're not out for your blood. We're not chopping off your heads. We're not doing anything. Why don't you guys understand that? Why don't you guys have Ubuntu? Why don't you guys have a heart? They don't, because they're incapable of that. You cannot expect the same behavior of a human being that you're expecting of a dog.
So let's bring this down. But let's get back to this wee tiny bit here, this wee portion. How can this guy talk about being subhuman when he looks like he's got AIDS? I mean, if this doesn't prove my point, I don't know what will. But we've got some more. We've got some more. And we've got some images that I've taken from Ireland. Now, Ireland's facing a replacement. You wonder, you know, a village with 700 people, and they put a migrant hotel with 800 migrants in it for sub-Saharan Africa. That's replacement. That's replacement. That's why we must guard against all these migrant hotels. They are replacement centres. Crime's fostered. The community dissolves. The people that are living there will end up moving away because it's so unlivable. That's what's happening. And we've got this guy. Remember this guy? African immigrant to Ireland celebrates the disappearance of Irish people. The whites are going extinct here now. We're taking over. Why should the Irish people celebrate being replaced in their Irish homeland? Exactly. But this is what the Irish government are doing. In league with the EU. You know, the IRA. Where are they? They're in league with this shit. Sinn Féin are in league with this shit. What's going on? Here's an Irish primary school. It doesn't look very Irish to me. No, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Our culture is being chipped away at. If it's not the statues, it's the media. If it's not the media, it's the actual villages and towns themselves. A big, a 99% white town village. They'll plant one of these migrant hotels with 800 people, 800 sub-Saharan Africans in, and expect everything to go fantastic. And they've got this, it's all for economic growth. What a lot of shit. No, what I really think it is that we ourselves, like the people who've lived in Western nations all this time, we've had this society, right, where we work, we live, we die. And now we're starting to find out it's all a big fucking scam. That they're just printing money like it's gone out of fashion. That it's just theft of an untold scale. But now, these people for sub-Saharan Africa haven't lived this society. They don't know the trick. They don't know the scam. So let's flood the areas where these people, so they can then get scammed at the expense of the people who know the scam's going on. And is it only a conspiracy theory? Is it only? And we'll end with that one. You tell me, ladies and gentlemen. Are we being replaced? I think so. I think so. It's, we must refuse migrant hotels all across the UK. The England and Wales, they're littered with them. Scotland not so much, but we must resist them. And what we're going to do, we're going to start a protest tour around all these migrant facilities. They don't belong here. We don't want them here. We don't want them here. So, ladies and gentlemen, is it only a conspiracy theory? You tell me. Right. So that's been the show, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed it, a Friday night. Probably taking you on a dark path on a Friday night, but I thought it was important to say, especially with this video coming out with this guy saying that white people are subhuman dogs. Like, we've got human beings here and we've got white people just below it, just below the category of human being. So we, this is exactly the same rhetoric that people use for genocides. They're not human. They don't deserve to live. They're not fit to guard your house as a dog, the guy says. Well, I think time will tell, won't it? Anyway, that's been the show. I hope you've had a fantastic Friday night. I'm sorry for putting a dampener on it. 600 viewers tonight, live right now. Thank you ever so much. If you could if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. The YouTube numbers are slowly climbing, but if even just 10%, even 5% of the people who are watching on Twitter just went across to the YouTube channel, put the wee banner up at youtube.com/Niall Fraser Show. But with content like this, it's probably no long before I get booted off YouTube anyway. But it's important to me to understand that you're liking what you watch and you want to watch more. Hey, 4 years ago, I was told by my employer my skills were no longer wanted nor needed. I'm a chef. Make that make sense. Well, the world always needs chefs. I don't know. I don't know who your employer. I need more of a sort of information on that. But I've been loving your comments for the last couple of shows, Racing Club. Please do come again. We're back on Monday night of Niall Fraser Show. I'm sure we'll have more news to cover. But other than that, there's nothing left for me to say or do other than play the outro music, guys. Enjoy your Friday night. Get yourself a wee tipple. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Au revoir.